Hi, this is Janine Miller, and you are watching Pieces of Victory. Today, we have on our show M. Adams. M is a survivor of a lockdown residential program that was called Bethesda Home for Girls that was located in Mississippi. In this compound, M experienced heinous crimes against humanity, including babies that were stolen from mothers and sold from mothers that were teenage mothers. So this was a school for teenage girls to come and have their baby. Instead, their babies were stolen and sold in the name of Christianity. Worse, there were beatings, starvation, malnourishment, child endangerment, slavery, child labor, and the list goes on. Today, M. Adams is here to tell her story. Please welcome to the show, M. Adams. Victory. Today, we have on our show M. Adams, and M is a survivor of the Bethesda Home for Girls. This is a continuation of the interview that we did with Barbara Ann from the Rebecca Home for Girls, and also Mardell Lister from also the Bethesda Home for Girls. Now we have M. Adams from Bethesda with her story, and I would like to say that M is definitely an activist in the survival community. She was just in DC with Paris Hilton. She had her picture taken with Paris Hilton. And she had also spoke on a documentary that Paris did in DC, and M was included in that. She thanked Paris for all the support that she's been doing, and I thank Paris for all the support she's been doing. We really appreciate that, and I would like to introduce M to the show, Pieces of Victory. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Janine. I appreciate you having me. It's an honor to be here with you again.
Thank you. You want to tell the audience a little bit about the federal bill that Paris Hilton is trying to pass, and also your experience in DC with Paris?
It's for children who are still currently experiencing the same situations that I and thousands of other children experienced in the troubled teen industry, both the secular and the religious sectors of the program. And it's to bring protection and basic rights to these children that they don't currently experience. Hundreds of thousands of children go through this program every year. They experience illness, injuries, and even death. We send kids, and we don't always send them back out.
Speaking of which, do you want to talk to the audience about the candlelight vigil for Naomi Woods and for Frederick Cornelius and many others that have passed away? How was that?
We had that at the White House, and that was really difficult. I hope we don't ever have to have another one of those vigils. We had family members, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, sisters speak about having their loved ones sent into what they thought was going to be a helpful program, and I honestly believe they thought their child was going to be helped, which has not always been my opinion of families in the past. But they honestly thought they were having their child helped, and their child came home either in an urn or in a coffin, and I think that's horrific.
Well, I'm glad you were there in DC to support the families and support other survivors. And I understand that they had a solitary confinement replica out on the lawn, so people could experience what we endured in these lockdown reform schools, boot camps for kids, rehabilitation programs, conversion therapies, wilderness programs, and you get the idea. Did you actually go into it yourself?
No, I would have broken somebody's legs if they tried to get me in there. I don't know how Paris was able to do that. That's what I told her. But pretty brave, because I spent 30 days locked in one of those after a particularly vicious beating, and I was naked.
After a vicious beating, I just want to reiterate that. That's horrifying. And
so
no medical attention after the beating. And here you are thrown in isolation for at least 30 days. That's awful. Just awful. Let's start from the beginning. What possessed your parents to send you to a lockdown residential program? And what
Mm.
year was it?
It was 1984. I was 15. We're pretty sure it was in June when I got there. Um, I don't communicate with my biological mother, so I really can't ask her details. And it was such a traumatic summer. I really don't. That stuff is kind of difficult to remember. Um, but I've been working at a nursing home, and like a lot of kids, I wanted to try smoking, and she had taught me with cigarettes, and she'd had my father make me eat the pack, and I got nicotine poisoning.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah.
And she thought that that was how to make a kid stop smoking. That's terrible. So it sounds like you were being abused at home.
I certainly thought I was. She didn't. Um, Unlike a lot of teens, I wanted to go to school dances. Oh yeah,
Verbal abuse. And verbal abuse
totally.
is just as bad as physical.
Yes.
It can
Yeah,
be
but there
as
was
bad as
physical.
physical. Go ahead.
It can be, but there was physical abuse too. Um, Very old-fashioned physical discipline. I do remember being beaten against my head against the floor, things like that. Locked in my room for hours.
So isolation.
Hmm. I was always the kid that was, too much, too loud, too this, to that, to whatever.
So
But I
let me get
didn't.
this straight. So your parents really weren't happy with you smoking. Anything else? How are you in school? Not that that's grounds to send your child to a reform school or
Right.
did.
I didn't. I never skipped school. Never went to the principal's office. Didn't drink. Didn't do drugs. I took honors classes.
Honors classes. Okay.
Ran
I feel
track.
like these are very similar stories where kids aren't really, doing anything wrong, and legalistic parents. Were your parents IFB?
They were. I think they might have been Southern Baptist when I was little.
Okay.
But interestingly, I was the only one that actually went to church.
Interesting.
Yeah, like
So
I
here
taught.
you are going to church, no drugs, no alcohol, was on an honor roll mention, and you get locked up into a reform school.
Oh
And
yeah,
Bethesda home was pretty much a home for pregnant girls,
hmm
primarily.
it
So
was.
how did you get into the
With my virgin self? Isn't that a good question? I'd like to know the answer too. Mom, you watching? Questions?
So
Uh,
let's go back into the compound. Uh, you get dropped off at this compound for supposedly just smoking.
well,
And
I was really sarcastic.
for being sarcastic, what teenager isn't sarcastic? So
I should have gotten an honorary degree. I got a mouth. It didn't really help because I still have it.
I feel that it's just an extreme, and parents really need to, even if they
I
have
think
a problem child, really need to look at the whole family dynamic. But we'll get into that later.
even if your kid stole the flag from the top of the school and wiped his butt with it, you probably shouldn't send him somewhere to be sodomized.
Exactly.
But that's just me.
And were you treated like a criminal in this place?
Absolutely.
Did
I
you
had
feel
no rights.
subhuman?
I'm sorry, what?
Did the pastor make you feel subhuman?
Yeah, we were way less than human. We weren't, we were just, yeah, I don't know what the right word is, but we were not human.
How did
We
you
were,
get to there? Were you arrested by them hiring someone to transport you, or
in the religious TTI, that isn't as much of a thing as it is in the other sector because we don't tend money the parents in the religious part. Some did, but like I think they tried to I think I was on my foster family's farm in Colorado, and they got me there. My dad worked for an airlines, so we flew for free, and they got me from there to Jacksonville, then from Jacksonville down to Hattiesburg, and from Hattiesburg down that damn road.
Wow. And what did they say? What did they tell? Where did they tell you were going?
There's horses.
Oh, wow. To a private Christian bougie boarding school.
Boarding school.
So you're thinking, what was the sitcom back in the 80s? Facts of Life?
That's what you think, because who knows?
Life, right? But it's not the facts of life.
It is the facts of life, but it isn't the TV version.
Right? You're in this compound. What is the first thing they did? I heard about the Lysol. Did they scrub you down with Lysol as well, or what happened?
Yeah, one of the workers, she took me in her bedroom, and then into her bathroom, and made me strip. Well, told me to strip, and I told her no. And she's like, you can either strip, or we're gonna bring girls in here and strip you.
Oh no! And so you're stripping in front of her, or what?
Yeah.
What rating is that?
Yeah, it's absolutely horrific.
That is horrific.
Yeah.
Especially a teenage girl. I remember as a teenager, I didn't want to change in the PE locker room.
No,
at all.
No, and when it's that time of the month, you certainly don't want to do that.
Wow.
But again, it was not a choice.
Terrible.
Nothing that followed was a choice.
So what happened next? Were you being rebellious, or did you go along? Were you compliant at this point, or during the strip?
I ended up being compliant and having to do jumping jacks to prove I didn't have anything hidden anywhere.
Oh no. So here you are, you had your period and you're doing jumping jacks. I need to just say it like it is so we can paint a picture to the audience. I'm not holding back.
Looks like a crime scene.
Wow.
There's blood everywhere.
Awful. What is wrong with these people? It's just horrible. And, this happened in 1984. So in 1984, and people are thinking, oh, well, that was 1984. I'm sorry to say, audience, but there are other Lester Roloff programs out there open today, and we're trying to close Agape. So this is
2022. Still fighting to keep kids' clothes on and their butt cheeks together.
Wow.
It's a treat. Please close Agape and Wings of Faith.
They are sister programs to Lester Roloff, to the Bethesda Home for Girls, to the Rebecca Home for Girls. They're just the branch.
It's like the Kentucky Fried Chicken franchise of the religious troubled teen homes.
That's a good way of putting it, because it is $1 billion industry, and we need to talk about the money.
And they cope. That's how they train, just like a franchise.
So not only was this preacher making money off of the parents, let's give you an example. I mean, we know that Mardell, her parents were paying $2,500 in 1979. In 1979, what were your parents paying? Were you on a sliding scale? What were they paying?
I don't know. But after I got home, my mom told me I owed them $60 a month until they told me to quit, until they told me I was done paying it off.
So not only did they force you to go to this place, that's horrible punishment. They forced you to go to this place. And 9 times out of 10, let's give parents the benefit of the doubt. They don't know these places are abusive.
Right.
Or know they're strict. And you're paying for this hell. That's
you get to pay back your torture, and that's sweet.
Awful.
Yeah.
And
charming.
Did you tell them, hey, I was tortured in this place?
Yeah, you tell them that, and they take you back for another 6 months.
Were you ever taken back a second round?
I was there for a year, which is usually the period of time prescribed at that time was a year. Then you were supposed to go home. But if the wills told your parents you weren't ready to go home, they could keep you over your year. And they did. They kept me over my year. Nobody ever told me why. I always had...
They wanted more money.
I had they gave me new girls to train all the time. Never really got in trouble except for my new girls. You know who you are. I hope you're watching.
Okay,
Okay.
let's talk about the training because we didn't touch base on this with Mardell and Barbara Ann. So I would like to talk about the training and what you mean by the training. In these places is a hierarchy
Mhm.
level. They are forcing girls and boys. In some places, there are boys' schools, especially Agape, same deal. There's a hierarchy level, and the more you abuse, the higher you go. So now they are orchestrating this program for children to abuse other children, for children
Correct.
to bully other children. So a lot of our abuse, yes, it came from staff, but it also came from the children. Would you like to talk about that, Anne?
Sure.
Okay.
When you first get there, you're obviously you're a new girl, and that lasts for a period of 3 months. So you're on watch. So you have a helper. That's a misnomer. But that's a girl who has been there for usually around 6 months or longer and is considered trusted by the staff. You have to stay within arm's length of her at all times. She can have up to 3 new girls at the same time. You cannot look at, touch, talk about the same subject. You cannot have anything to do with anybody else that's on watch. You cannot be without a sight of your helper. You don't go anywhere without that person. And that lasts for 3 months.
Wow.
And then you can ask to be let off watch. Then once that happens, you can talk to other girls that are on watch. You can talk to them unless you're separated from them, which means you can't. You still have to act like they don't exist.
Let's talk about the buddy system. It sounds
The
like
helpers.
system with the helper. Okay. So in our place, it was called helpers, but it was also called the buddy system, where you
Mhm.
had to stand a certain amount of feet. I think it was 3 feet behind your helper. And if you disobeyed that rule, you would get punished for it. What was the case at Bethesda? Did you have to stay behind or in front of a buddy?
Mine usually stood in front of me, I think.
It's okay. Front, behind, it
You,
doesn't matter.
I had to stay where I could see them. Like they had to be I had to be able to reach them all pretty quick.
Exactly. So there was a
Like
certain amount of feet, whether you
like
were
an arm spread, yeah, with
yeah,
an arm's reach,
exactly.
yeah.
And so please tell the audience, let's say you slacked off and you were 5 feet or 10 feet because you wanted a drink of water and you were dehydrated. What would happen to you?
It depended on what kind of mood they were in, but you could get anywhere from 5,000 lines to go to a board party, or you could get your new girls taken away and put back on watch.
I'm sorry, a board party? Are you talking about licks?
Mhm.
Okay. I just want to clear this up for the audience. So licks are beatings and it's with
Yes,
a board. Is that correct?
yes. It said, "The Lord blistereth and the Lord healeth.
And
Blessed be the name of the Lord."
I just want to clarify things because there's an audience that doesn't know what really goes on with these licks. They don't know, is it one shot? Is it 10 shots, 20 shots? How hard is it? They're beatings. They're beating these children. And
It's like a beating a full-grown man would get. They'll tell you, "We just spanked them with love." No, they give you hamburger butt, which is where you're beaten, bloody, and bleeding. We tried to sneak pictures out of Bethesda inside a teddy bear, and they found the pictures and tore up the teddy bear and couldn't have them anymore.
I'm sorry, can you reiterate that? Is that when they found pictures that you survivors took girls in the school of the bruises to prove, and they
And the
found,
bleeding, and they found the girl that when she tried to smuggle it, she was going home, and they found it, and there
and
was
they
a big
probably ended
problem.
up beating her more.
I don't know what happened to her because we didn't see her, but we know we got in trouble.
Wow, it's
Yeah.
awful. Did you feel like you were on high alert all the time, just having to watch everything you did, afraid of making a mistake, afraid of not being good enough?
Well, yeah, if you make a mistake, the hell, you will lose your salvation.
Wow.
That's eternal damnation right there.
afraid of making a mistake because of your salvation, your walk with God, and also the repercussions of being thrown in isolation and being beat.
Yeah, it's not
So
much fun either.
it's,
Yeah.
it's awful. And for parents who are Christian, I need you to pay attention to this because you think these are Christian schools. They're just wolves in sheep's clothing.
They're
And
cults.
they are
It's
called.
not a church. There is no choice. Look
And
at the 7 traits of a cult.
if you have a 1% chance, I say this on my show all the time, that this can happen to your child, just a 1% chance, why would you take that risk? Why even risk it? Why not
If a
something where
program, yeah,
family is involved? And because it is a whole family dynamic, it's not isolate the child from the family.
yeah, there's
What did that
probably a problem in the whole family. How about you treat the whole family?
and what did that do to your psyche? Knowing, forget about the beatings, forget about the isolation and starvation and medical neglect. What did that do to your psyche?
Destroyed it. I have a hashtag that says no more. It's because nobody should have to go through the life that a lot of us did because of what we experienced.
What they do in these teen programs is they isolate the child from the parent, and the parent cannot see their child for months at a time sometimes. Okay, I don't even care if it's a day or a week. The parent should be able to drop in whenever they want at a facility. And if they cannot, you need to steer clear away from that facility, that program.
And if I'm a parent and you as a program are going to tell me to expect my child to complain of sexual abuse and physical abuse, and that you're going to hang them and discipline them when they do, and it's just manipulation, I'm going to have questions. Every one of the programs tells that your kid's going to lie about being abused. Ignore it. We'll take care of it for you. Don't worry about it. They all say they're being abused here. They're not. They're just manipulating.
You just led me into the perfect segue because I wanted to touch base on this before. This is the perfect recipe for pedophiles
It
and
is.
monsters because it's just like the prisons. Think of it as the prisons. Who's going to believe a troubled teenager? This is a troubled teenager. They lie, they steal, they do drugs, they do this, they do that. Everyone has a misconception on the children in these places. And so no one really.
But here's the preacher who says, I'm taking care of these children. Look at us. We have sterling reputations. We're men of God. We love these children. Look at what we sacrifice. We give up our whole lives so we can beat these children behind our closed doors. We don't let y'all in for a reason.
Yeah, it's just despicable what goes on behind closed doors, and parents really need to wake up, especially a Christian family. Not everything is what you see. It is not. It's a facade. A lot of these camps are a facade, and it's the perfect recipe. Who's going to believe a troubled teen? It really is. And the reason why I say that is because we have Agape still open, Wings of Faith, Anchor, Masters Ranch, and the list goes on. Those are just lesser roll-off programs. We didn't even touch on Provo Canyon, who is ran. They are ran by the state. They are state regulated. Provo Canyon.
I know.
So, yes, we're trying to pass a federal bill on oversight, but we already have a state regulated facility and they are just sliding through.
I know it's bad enough that the state ones can be so awful. Imagine what's even worse if the state can't even get behind the doors to look at what's happening. And the kids are so terrified. Like the kids at Agape were questioned with the sheriff, one of the sheriff's deputies that works there in the room listening to the interview.
Everyone
How appropriate is that?
Each other. They're all sleeping with each other, so to speak.
In that county.
And
everybody
messed up. And I've heard so many stories on Agape alone. Also, Circle of Hope Girls Ranch, where they would tell the authorities, hey, I'm being abused, I'm being sexually abused, I'm being beat, I'm being restrained. They're starving us. And they will send them right back.
Take them right back.
Hell.
Do
And
the
they are
same thing at Bethesda.
our protectors, and they are not protecting us. We don't
You
know what
can't call 911 if they work at the sheriff's department, can you? Can't call the white knights if the white knights are working at the place that's got you.
I feel like we really need to clean up this country, and uh, they should be fired or have a repercussion, a legal repercussion. They should be in prison for that.
There's no excuse to
I feel
abuse.
like I've been watching my P's and Q's for so long and trying to be politically correct that I don't care anymore, because what about our children? No one's doing anything about our kids, and these places are still open. There's over 100,000 of these camps still open.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Rebecca Home for Girls and Bethesda. Bethesda Home and Rebecca Home for Girls both had teenage girls coming to the program that were pregnant, and they were selling the babies and profiting off of that. So not only were they making money from the parents to have their child in there, now they're selling babies, and without the girl's permission. It is so criminal, I can't even begin to explain.
And they were getting money from churches.
And churches.
Oh, yeah, love donations for taking care of these sinful, disgusting, trashy, horrible children that even their own parents threw out, right?
I also think that it is just so criminal to psychologically damage a child in this fashion. And Christians, pay attention, okay? Because I was a strong Christian, and I was on honorable mention, and I was made to feel subhuman as a Christian.
Yeah, I don't believe that anymore.
A Christian, okay? So I think Christians really need to pay attention to this. They are telling girls, young girls and boys, that they aren't good enough. Agape, they're doing that at Agape too. That they're not good enough for God.
Yeah, a lot of us got saved 40 or 50 times just to be safe.
Right.
I don't know.
And that is exactly what was going on at Victory Christian Academy as well. These girls and these boys, they keep praying to God every day. Can you imagine that? Every day, because you're so afraid you're going to go to hell because this preacher is making you feel like you're not good enough.
Just tell them you cannot beat Jesus into a child, because you can beat him right out.
Yes, let's talk about free will. So when I was a strong Christian before I went into this place, I had free will. I felt like I had free will, and that's the way it should be, free will. God doesn't want you to be scared, that's the reason why you chose salvation. And these preachers are doing that in these camps. They're scaring the children so they can comply to whatever, including sexual abuse. And then they're testifying. Let's talk about IFB and the sexual abuse for a second. They're conditioning girls and boys that, especially with women are subhuman in IFB too. They're just second-class citizens, maybe third.
Maybe third.
Children and also women are just on a different level. And women are the temptress. Women, it's what you wear, your perfume, your demeanor.
What'd you do to deserve that, honey?
It's the perfect recipe to sexually abuse children. And it's awful.
It is.
Were you sexually abused in this camp?
Other than the stuff that they did to everybody, like the Lysol stuff and the strip searches. No.
Can we talk about that? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I know we talked about it on the other show, but I would like what was your personal experience? Did they put Lysol into your body? Okay. Into your vagina. We'll just clear it up here.
Well, let's clarify it everywhere you can, just about.
Wow. That's
it's the stuff in the old brown bottles, that stuff that they used to clean in the hospitals, like back in the day. Not the good stuff, the new stuff, the orangey, dried full smells. It's quite caustic.
It's awful. And Lysol is just filled with, Lysol is a chemical. and to just put that on your skin alone, it's going to cause burning. And now it was concentrated too, right, Em? Okay, so we're talking concentrated Lysol. Even if it wasn't concentrated, that is still going to burn. Okay, now we're talking concentrated. And now you're
it's kind of like bleach.
Into a vagina.
Or
and also you were
a rectum, yeah.
an enema, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awful. Awful. And no medical attention at all whatsoever.
No.
Children would try to commit suicide because it was so heinous in this place. And
yes, and they would get punished.
They would get punished. Barbara Ann was in isolation for weeks, maybe even a month. She doesn't know how long she was in there because it was so long.
Like her fingernails
to heal that were 2 inches wide, and she needed stitches. And they didn't take her to the doctor and threw her into isolation, which is a hole. Okay, a hole. Awful, just awful.
Not humane.
What about sleep deprivation? Because you're on high alert right now.
Constantly, because you're always waiting. Like, you want to traumatize a bunch of adult women that have been in a religious TTI? Put on pantyhose and come down the hall with a pair of keys jingling.
Oh my God.
We're going to run screaming like a bunch of bitches.
Oh my God. So while you are trying to sleep, you can hear the keys rattling of the staff just trying to check up on you.
Oh yeah, it was 24/7. We did have a system in place, like, where like every 2 hours they would have 2 girls walk the halls, hall walkers, and so you and another girl would have a flashlight and you'd walk the halls and shine your light in like each bed to make sure that nobody was trying to get away or like trying to start a rush or anything. But yeah, somebody was always watching you.
Students that were doing it?
Yeah, we had. Yeah, right. It wasn't a choice.
We were overseeing the girls. Okay, so
It was a privilege.
It was a privilege, and they're not getting paid, so they are pretty much supervising the girls in these camps, and they're not getting a paycheck for it. Did you get a paycheck for any of the hard labor that you were doing at this camp? And what kind of labor were you doing at this camp?
Whatever they told me to do.
And if you didn't do it, licks or some sort of punishment.
Yeah. They one of the things they used before they caught on is sometimes, like, if you didn't clean your room good enough, they would like make you run laps in the field across the way. But I ran track in high school, so I would like purposely like leave a wrinkle or something so I could like get out and run.
Oh wow!
And then they figured out that I liked it.
Oh wow!
So then I started having to write.
Get beat when you were wrinkle.
That and cleanliness is next to godliness. I will keep my room clean 5,000 times.
Wow!
In like 2 days or something.
And let's just explain to the audience about these demerits. They're not positive reinforcements, and I talk about that in my book because I paint a picture of how mental abuse is just as bad as physical. And what you're doing is it's a form of programming. And I really want to talk about that because there are a lot of survivors that are still brainwashed to think that these programs are the best thing that's ever happened to them, and this is where God saved them. And I want to get to the root of that programming right here.
Sure.
I was brainwashed. You were probably brainwashed as well. As confident as I was, knew that this was wrong, knew this wasn't godly, knew that no congregation that I experienced ever did anything like this, right? I still ended up being brainwashed. So the programming is the preacher nonstop telling you that you're no good. We were told whores, thieves, liars, the whole list. I'm sure you had a list, yes? In chapel.
Fence post humping hussies.
Hussies. Okay.
Fence post humping. We're fence post humping hussies.
Fence post humping
hussies.
And chapel and church. Okay, Christians, I need you to get mad at this, okay? That's not of God. You don't tell that to a child. In church? Really? at any rate, there was a list. So now you're getting programmed. And even if you think you're not being programmed, you are in your subconscious mind. And just not good enough for God. You're being called a hussy, a Jezebel. And just because you say it biblically doesn't mean that it doesn't have the same meaning. It does. And then you're writing how bad you are every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. When you make a mistake, whether it's a piece of dust, you're reinforcing yourself that you're not good enough.
Yep.
The negative reinforcements,
Mm-hmm.
negative affirmations. So we always talk about positive affirmations and manifesting, and here this place was complete opposite.
Yeah, like if you even said, "Oh, my hair looks pretty today," "Oh God, you're vain." That's a problem.
And there would be repercussions for
Yeah,
too.
it sure could be. Yeah,
Not off the hook.
yeah. But you're supposed to look pretty for future preacher boys, so it was kind of a weird.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, it was odd.
I felt like there was a lot of confusion with these preachers. For example, I remember the preacher at Victory Christian Academy, and I talk about this in my book. In one sense, he's saying that knowledge is the root of all evil and that we should just be childlike, right? The next thing you know, he's telling us we're a bunch of losers and we're never going to amount to anything and you're going to work at Taco Bell for the rest of your life. Would you pick something? Because you're confusing. And you just preached that confusion is a sign of Satan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. And none of it makes any sense.
None of it makes any sense. And if it doesn't make any sense, it's probably
not true. But they just had me so confused.
I'm sorry.
I know. But like he would sit there and sometimes give sermons about how he stayed with his wife because she made his favorite dish that was butter beans and coconut cake, but he liked to eat them together. Who gives a fuck? I mean,
and that's
really?
He stayed with his wife.
Okay, I wrote it in my Bible. I hope it's not on the test.
These people are just crazy. So you get the idea. These camps are being ran by people that don't have any scruples, and what's worse is that they are pedophiles and
they are
using our children.
And they are run out of, or they go from state to state to state. They get closed down, or they voluntarily close because of too much heat in the location they are, and they just set up shop and they do it over and over and over again.
It's the rebranding, and if they get a slap on the wrist in one state because maybe they need a license, that's what happened to us at Victory Christian Academy. Michael Palmer, I can say his name since he's dead now.
I don't even care if mine are dead or not. I still say their name. Come get me.
They moved it to Genesis by the Sea and then moved it to Florida and then called it a different name. So
the Wills got closed down in 86.
86.
In Mississippi for what they did to us, and they came straight here to where I'm at in Missouri and opened Mountain Park. And the judge, Shan, was called up here and said, "Hey, this is what they did down here, and you better do something because they're setting up shop and they're going to kill somebody up there. They're going to get a kid killed up there." Sheriff Barry went out there and they said, "Gee, these look like God-fearing folks to us." And guess what? Will Futrell Jr. was murdered. He was stabbed to death. So
I'm sorry, say that again. Who was murdered?
Will Futrell Jr. was murdered in 95 by students. He was stabbed to death because they were afraid he was going to tell. They were going to try to weigh Mr. Wills, in his unique wisdom, those terrible troubled kids that he talks about, gave them pocket knives because you can't be a man without a pocket knife. But they used those pocket knives to stab and kill him because they wanted to run.
Right. And we need to paint a picture of that. I did that before in another interview with the girls that stabbed another student. I'm going to do it again with this. When you're in this place, you feel trapped. In your particular
You are trapped.
3 layers of barbed wire and a fence. A fence with 3 layers of barbed wire. There were monitors. You couldn't communicate to the outside world. There were no
True.
phone calls to an attorney. There was no phone calls to family. And if there was miraculously a phone call, it was monitored along with the letters. And you could
They
only write your parents. Is that correct in your place too? Okay.
It's read in and out.
Home for girls. It was read. At any rate,
Mhm.
the point is you are trapped and
You
you're
are.
being beat and sexually abused and feeling helpless.
They can
And
starve you for as long as they want. They can do whatever they want, and they will.
and what other recourse do they have if you want to get out of it? You can't just leave. You can't get out of it. And some kids are there for years. And maybe just how long were you there for?
I was there too, which is pales in comparison. Like some of these kids now that they're getting left their entire teenage years.
That is awful.
Like that makes me want to vomit. What in the hell?
We were better off in prison or juvenile hall. In juvenile hall, I did a comparison on it,
hmm
and
hmm
I felt like that was a picnic. And I don't want to romanticize juvenile hall by any means.
No, but you do have more rights in jail and prison than you do
I could have
as
called,
a troubled teen.
and I could have refused a visit with my mother. I didn't want my parents visiting me. I wanted other visitors. In juvenile hall, you can refuse a visit from your parents, and well, at least the one in LA. I'm sure everyone is different, but for the most part, it was like Camp Snoopy when I got done off the phone.
Yeah, you're like, well, not getting beat to death here. That's cool.
Let's talk about school, because when I did my comparison in juvenile hall, the kids are going to school in juvenile hall. Okay. And in these
Oh,
places, the educational system, did you find that you did more hard labor without pay, which is called slavery? Okay. We're not in the 1800s. We're not
right.
slaves. Okay. And it actually makes sweatshops look a lot more appealing. So tell me, did you have more school or less school and more work?
I would have rather had more school because I was a bibliophile. Like I read at least a book a day as a child and as a teenager and well into my adult years. And all we had was the Bible. We didn't even have school books or teachers. We had packets of accelerated Christian education.
Was it the PACE packets?
Paces of packets of Christian education. Yep. We didn't even have teachers.
I'm sorry?
We didn't even have teachers.
And let's go over how these programs aren't even accredited. So when you
Oh, Mr. Wills and Mr. Clemenson created their own accreditation agency here in Missouri together so they could put a little stamp on their websites that says, we're an accredited boarding school.
oh wow. But then when you try to transfer over, it doesn't work. Is that correct?
That's correct. I graduated a year early valedictorian. I took my GED breastfeeding my daughter when she was like 4 months old. My fourth kid breastfed her, took my GED.
So regardless of that stamp, right?
That means shit.
It doesn't mean it's a facade.
It's a facade. Just like their religion, their everything. It's a facade. Ain't worth nothing. They made it up. They created it themselves.
Did you ever think about running away while you were there and coming up with a plan? Or
Well, who didn't? But they would be quick to let you know about Connie Munson. She ran away with a group of other girls, got hit and killed by a truck.
hit by a truck, so they use that as part of their scare tactics.
That's what God does to punish girls who step out of his will. He hits them with trucks and kills them.
It's awful. It's awful.
He even used her death to terrify the kids at Mountain Park.
Oh, wow.
Disgusting.
I just don't understand how parents can leave their children in these homes that have made the newspaper.
No.
And you hear girl dying from a truck because she's running away. Why was she running away? Are you not looking at these red flags? And also the stabbing over at the Rebecca Home for Girls.
Yeah. And they're like, well, sued by the ACLU. Girls look like concentration camp survivors. Sure, I'll send my kid there. Those cigarettes, there were two of them. When more of the Southern Poverty Law Center sued the Wills on our behalf, he said that we looked like concentration camp survivors.
Oh, wow.
So not exactly a glowing recommendation for the program. Yeah.
That's awful. That's awful.
Yeah.
What did you look like when you got out of the program? Did you lose a substantial amount of weight? Did you look like?
I was small. I mean, yeah. And Mrs. Wells had kept me on a diet. I think I was probably about 100 pounds when I got out. I was 5'2".
Wow.
I'm like 150 now. So Mrs. Wells would probably break my jaw because no good preacher boy is going to want me now. Thank God. I said Mrs. Wells would have put me on the fat girl diet for sure because I'm 150 pounds. She would have to break my jaw with a baseball bat because no good preacher boy wants a fat girl. Thank God I escaped that fate now.
Awful. And this whole double standard of don't be vain, but yet they're starving the girls because you're unfit to be seen.
Good preacher wives, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Make up your mind, people. It's just awful what they do to these kids in there. And that's psychological damage and physical. You're starving the kids and you're psychologically damaging them to feel that they're not good enough, lowering self-esteem all the time. And what's really sad are, again, let's go back to how there's murders that are happening in these places. Kids are dying. Parents want to take the kids out because they're brainwashed. I feel that a lot of these kids, especially in Agape right now, their parents aren't taking them out. There's a whole bunch of information going on in the news right now. Let's talk about the sodomy, the sexual abuse, the rape, the gang rape.
Yeah. I mean,
paper of an autistic boy. You know, if you don't care about the troubled teen industry, right, and you don't have a heart for that, well, now we have an autistic boy that was raped, and Dr. David Smock, he has charges against him.
2 counties.
In 2 counties. What's happening with that now? Do you know the latest?
The judge arraigned him, found probable cause to decide there was enough evidence to hold him over on charges. So we're just waiting for his next court date. I believe it's going to be next month. And then the householders, it's the same thing. We're waiting for them to go in a couple of weeks. They should have another trial. Maybe start their trial, or they may just change it back to another case management trial. Probably just another case management trial. I can't imagine they're going to go to trial so soon.
So now we have gang rape with an autistic boy and another boy at the school. And then we have Dr. David Smock, who has all of these accusations on him, charges on him.
Yes.
And they are in the process of prosecuting him.
Yes.
They're in the process of it. He hasn't been prosecuted, but they're in the process.
Yeah, he has been bound over on the charges, and he's still being held. He's being held on, I believe it's $250,000 bond in Greene County, which is where he's being housed. He cannot be held in Cedar County because the sheriff has publicly admitted to being his best friend. He's no bond in Cedar County right now. They're holding him on no bond. He does not. Ty Gaither is no longer the prosecutor. He has a special prosecutor. So it's not being handled by Cedar. It's just in their courtroom, but it's not.
Ty is no longer the prosecutor.
Not on Smock. No, it's a special prosecutor.
Fantastic.
So that was a lot of hard work by a lot of people.
Wonderful news.
Yeah.
I'm coming down on the parents right now.
Have at it.
You have all of this going on. Okay, this is how brainwashed the parents are. Okay, you have all of this going on. And somehow this preacher, owner of Agape or whatever program it is convincing these parents to not believe any of these boys because they are troubled teens. and this is the best place for him. Boy, you're doing a really good job, because as a parent, I would be yanking my kid out so fast. How on earth is he convincing these parents to keep their kids there? And the parents just eat this up. And that's the problem. We're trying to make changes with legislation. It's so hard, but we're trying. But the point is, I feel that the root of the problem here is, if parents stopped sending their children to these places, they would all go belly up.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Gosh darn. All these years, it was that simple.
And parents need to raise their children. And like I said before, if you have a 1% chance that anything can go wrong with your child, no child deserves. I don't care if they kill someone. No child deserves to be abused like this. That is not the answer.
And you provide me one study that says treatment like that is going to help.
Can you tell me about the brainwashing afterwards and the psychological damage that you had afterwards? How did you cope?
Not well.
Try to self-medicate, or no?
No, I wish I had. Sometimes I know my whole idiot story will come out eventually. I didn't do well. I developed a mental illness. I was able to make it through college and become a respiratory therapist, but trying to do survivor advocacy and stuff, I just had like breakdown after breakdown after breakdown.
Oh, so you were having breakdowns by doing the advocacy. And I want people to really appreciate survivors doing advocacy, because whether you're writing a book, doing a film, writing a screenplay, talking on these shows, you're going through it again. You're going through, and yes, it is cathartic, but it's also taxing on the psyche, and we really need to balance. I need to work on balancing. And for a while on lockdown, I was doing 17+ interviews and editing. So not only was I talking about it, now I'm editing. And it's about, I would say for 2 hours, it's 16 hours of editing work.
Oh, God. Yeah.
On 1 hour, it's about 8 hours. But it's my passion. I love doing it. I love helping survivors. And also, like I said, it's cathartic for me as well. But you are really putting yourself back into the program when you talk about it. When you talk about it, you're putting yourself back.
I know. Like, my passion is, like, I like doing survivor support. Like, when somebody's like struggling and like overwhelmed, I like talking to them like one-on-one and trying to help them calm down or find resources and stuff. That's what I really, really enjoy. But it's been a little immersive lately. I need to step back, take a little bit of a break for a couple of weeks and get my health back. And we've got to get agape. I mean, we got to do what we got to do for now and get it done. We got to get them closed. I mean, there's no option.
And I feel this way, and I'm sure you feel the same way. You feel, oh my gosh, every day if I don't do something, I know what goes on behind closed doors. If I don't do anything, I feel guilty.
Every day, especially because I am so close in proximity. It's torturous. Every day it just kills me.
Because you know what goes on there. You know what's happening. And for America to just turn a blind eye, we've been trying to tell America for years about what goes on there.
And like, I'm so thankful that Paris Hilton is speaking out and people are listening to her, because we didn't get a lot of credibility before her. You know how many times we heard that didn't happen. What'd you do? You must have deserved it. People don't do things like that.
Right. Well, I always get, what did you do? You must have been a bad girl. And they're insinuating something
salacious.
And I'm just thinking, you don't know anything about my story. And now it's our way of, these shows are a way of expressing ourselves, giving a voice. I tried to kind of beat anyone to the punch from saying, "What did you do? You must have been a bad girl." I actually had a politician say that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what I do is try to beat them to the punch and say, "Well, we were abused." I'm a survivor of a lockdown reform school. So I try to beat them to the punch before they could say, "Well, what did you do?" Now it's on the staff. Now it's on the school. But
that's a good idea.
Why do we have to do that? Why can't people just not be so judgmental? And then when I confronted the politician, which I won't name his name, but they know who they are. When we were trying to pass a federal bill, that was when it was George Miller in California before it was reintroduced by Adam Schiff. I went to a politician, had a meeting, and prior to that, we had a brief meeting with staff. Staff was all for it. Then when I had a meeting with this politician, I'm keeping it vague because I'm not going to slander somebody. They know who they are.
They know what a jerk they are.
What did you do to deserve this? What did you do to get in there? Does it really matter? And he started off with, "Well, I have children." Great.
Maybe you
I
shouldn't.
don't like child abuse. Fantastic. Are you going to be behind this federal bill? Absolutely not. He didn't say that, but that was the outcome. And then it was on me. What did you do to deserve this? That has to stop. That's messed up. I could have slandered him, but anyway, I don't even know if I want to put that. I'll keep it positive. Let's talk about, I want to reiterate because I don't know if I said it enough times. And 9 times out of 10, these kids that go into these lockdown residential programs, they didn't commit a crime.
Weren't convicted of anything.
The law. It is just a teenager. They're just teenagers. And maybe they are just rebellious, but what teenager isn't rebellious? This is the same story. We have teenagers that are on honorable mention, studying, working. I was working, and they are locked up in these camps. Some even go to church.
They don't even have a fixed sentence. They're just there till whenever their parents say or when they turn 18.
So I think a lot of parents are just flippantly sending their children to these places, and then we get labeled as the troubled children. And
I hope their nursing homes are half as nice.
I want to make it clear that Barbara Ann was abused. She didn't commit a crime ever.
I know. I used to be very close to her.
To know this, she didn't commit a crime ever, and yet she was in a jumpsuit for juvenile hall and was in handcuffs and escorted.
Did a perp walk on a child? Yeah, they treated her just like a criminal.
Yes, they did. They
Disgusting.
did treat her like a perpetrator, and that's awful. And also, the transportation is another degrading thing for these kids. They're in handcuffs. They're being held and going through the airport. I want to know why security or no one questions any of these kids that are being transported, and they think that's okay.
Yeah, like a hysterical kid on an airplane, and I remember the flight attendant asked me, "What's wrong? Why are you crying so hard?" And I was trying to tell her they're taking me to some, and just kept saying, "No, she just has a headache. She just has a headache."
What?
So weird.
And the flight attendant believed that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
But the effects of it never leave you, ever. But other kids, nobody should have to go through this. Nobody.
Do you have a sleeping disorder?
Oh yeah, don't we all?
Yeah. That's why we're talking.
That's why we're talking.
You know what I'm finding? I'm trying to be positive about it. I've tried just about everything. And the thing that I'm finding that's working now to other survivors is that I'm working myself to death at the gym. So I have a gym in my apartment complex, and I'll go and I'll work out. I mean hard.
Yeah.
Like level 12 on the elliptical and the Stairmaster. I'm talking resistance.
Oh God, I would die.
And I'm just I
I wish
found
I could.
that
Yeah.
working myself to death almost is helping
Yeah.
me sleep because now I'm totally exhausting myself. But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll be in the best shape ever by the time I hit 70.
I know if I can get my disease back under control, going regular exercise really helps.
Yeah.
It really
I
does
wish we
control
could
my
go
anxiety.
anywhere.
It's good.
We could go work out together.
That'd be amazing. I'd love that.
And then I had Nancy's story. And you know Nancy. You're friends with Nancy, right?
Yeah, she's one of my sissies. Yeah.
Nancy Womack.
Yeah.
And good to tell the audience, she's a survivor of Bethesda Home for Girls, and her baby was stolen. And the episode is called Stolen on NBC. Is that 60 Minutes? That was 60 Minutes. Okay.
It was Dateline.
Oh, it's Dateline. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Dateline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we also have other survivors that were on Dateline that I would like to mention. Okay. We've had a lot of survivors getting some notice. Amanda Householder from the Circle Poke Girls Ranch, who is the daughter of the owners, and she was brave enough to come forth. She's also a survivor.
Yes,
and
she is.
brave enough to come forth and tell the public of what really went on behind closed doors. Ended up, her and other survivors getting that place closed down. Circle of Hope, there are over 100 charges against her father and also charges against her mother. They are on house arrest. No one has been prosecuted yet, but they are in house arrest and over 100 charges, including sodomy with the father. Maggie Drew is another survivor. She was on Dateline. Amanda Householder. Colton Schraub, who is a survivor of Agape boarding school, he was on Dateline. And we also have Ashley Tucker and her mother also on Dateline. We have James Swift, who is on Netflix, along with myself. And it's season 2, Haunted, season 2, third one down, called Cult of Torture. We had our M. Adams in DC with Paris Hilton. And just a lot of good stuff going on. We have Nick Gallia, who is a filmmaker and he's an activist. Jody Hobbs, who has survivors of institutional abuse. So a lot of good things are happening with survivors. And we have the Talk Troubled with Miranda.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Hammer Podcast has been.
Yeah, don't forget Jason.
On the Hammer Podcast with Jason.
He's awesome.
He is awesome. And he has really exploded Agape.
Mm-hmm. He did. Right off the map.
For all those boys from Agape. We also have the Preacher Boys. Were you on the Preacher Boys?
I have not talked to the Preacher Boys yet.
I have not either. So he really specializes with the IFB, and we're both IFB survivors. So
we should, huh? We should.
Maybe we can both be on the show together.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
So a lot of good things, are happening with survivors. And I'm
it's
sorry
amazing.
I haven't left anybody out, but books, films, everybody.
Yeah, Robert Buckland is doing an amazing job.
Who is? I'm sorry?
Robert Buckland.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, he's doing amazing.
And then we have also Bethel. And we have...
Yeah, and Alan.
Alan Knoll. I'm sorry. I just had to think about it.
It's okay.
I'm trying to keep track of my children here.
I know there's so many.
I'm going to edit that out. So we also have Alan Knoll, who wrote a book. It's called Bethel. He's a survivor of not only Bethel, which is another Lester Roloff program, but Agape Boarding School, which is another Lester Roloff program that we're trying to close down. And he made some progress because his abusers were actually prosecuted. And I didn't know that until the last interview. So that's wonderful. So good news, we're making some headway.
Yes.
But it's also disheartening when we say these places it's an emergency to save these kids, and they're not.
It is.
We're so busy going to other countries and saving their women and their children, and yet we have camps here in America. They're really camps.
They are.
Force a child to eat their own vomit. They can't make phone calls. When you have more rights in prison, when they're selling babies, making these young girls have babies and then selling them. And a lot of them wanted to keep their babies.
They did.
So they were pro-life. What's wrong with that? Allow them to keep their baby.
Mm-hmm.
They stole babies and sold them.
Did. They also disposed of some of the babies' remains on the property.
Did they ever have someone go hunting for bones on the property to see if there's?
They have done one pass, yes, and we
They
haven't found
have
any
done one
so
pass.
far.
Talking about this, and what was the outcome? Do you know?
I haven't found anything on the one pass. We're hoping to do some more passes. We have to raise funds to remove a concrete building pad and be able to replace it, to be able to dig
We also
again.
think that there are remains over at New Bethany, because what you see on Netflix, and Netflix did a very good job of depicting what happens in these camps, these conversion therapies. And
Yes,
this was a Lester Rolla program. The preacher's name was Mac Ford,
yes,
and he was torturing these children. So not only was he telling parents, "Oh, these kids are an abomination to God, and this is just ungodly, and these kids are going to go to hell, and you need to save their soul." Well, that's a perfect ploy to get all these kids on your camp, right, and abuse them. So he was raping the kids, sodomizing them, and then selling them off to politicians and football players. And
yes, he
James
is.
Swift could hear it in the background. He could hear that going on.
Yep.
He said it during a Netflix recording, but they couldn't put that in there. But I'm putting it on my show.
Yeah,
This has to stop.
they did take us to New Bethany once or twice for ceremonies, and there was kind of like a hierarchy among the homes there. It was like New Bethany was where you wanted to go for most privileges, like the easiest restriction wise.
What? Oh
But
my goodness.
but there was the Mac Ford problem. And then Bethesda was in the middle, as long as you weren't pregnant, wanted to keep a baby. But if you were really in trouble, you didn't want to go to Bethel because Bethel was really bad. So they would threaten New Bethany with being sent to Bethesda, and Bethesda, we were threatened with taken to Bethel.
So you were actually on this so-called field trip to New Bethany?
We went on field trips to Bethel too to remind us it could be worse.
Oh. So basically it was a threat. They were threatening you.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. And
I remember Herman Fountain. He was terrible. That was a terrible, terrible man.
And New Bethany, let's just talk to the audience that doesn't know about New Bethany. They were feeding girls. I was Jennifer Halter's rape advocate, and they sodomized her and then told her to clean up her own mess. And this is all in the name of God, by the way. Christians, you better wake up, okay? Just because something says Christianity on it doesn't mean it's so. It doesn't mean it's so. I was naive as a Christian, thinking that Christianity was loving, and if someone said they were a Christian, that they were actually a Christian. No, there are wolves in sheep's clothing. There are pedophiles in sheep's clothing. And basically this was grounds for a pedophile. Not only was Mac Ford raping, sodomizing the kids there, boys and girls, he was doing it to boys and girls, by the way. And then homosexuality is an abomination.
I'm not laughing. I'm just laughing because it's so horrible.
I understand, and that's your way of coping. I know why you do it. It's just so disheartening to hear about the gruesome things that it went on. It was like a serial killer's dungeon. James is lucky he did not die. They were doing shock treatment on him, sodomizing him, torturing him as if it was in another country. And guess what, America? This man was not even prosecuted. A serial rapist, along with other staff pastors.
Herman Fountain runs an adult men's drug rehab. He's barred in the state from ever working with young kids again. So now he runs adult men's drug rehab instead.
And it's terrible because now he's abusing adults, and they're probably writing a consent form. And that's awful. And these people need to be prosecuted.
They shouldn't get away with what they did.
Now he sold babies too, right? He beat the girls. He sold babies. He's part of selling the babies, correct?
He's a human monster.
Okay. Because I know Lester Roloff sold the babies, but Herman.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was good friend. He was friends with Roloff too.
So they were all in cahoots
Mhm.
with selling the babies. Maybe.
Yeah, they like girls would travel in between the programs, like if they needed to get them away from, like one parent was coming for a custody battle or whatever. They would they could shuttle the kids between programs, and they did.
Lester Roloff died.
Yeah, he's dead before I got there, but they still
continue.
Like girls came from Rebecca to Bethesda. We girls to other they trade kids between programs, move them in between states and stuff.
Didn't he find a plane crash and it was a raining and thunderstorm and somebody warned him about the weather conditions and he said, "No, I have faith in God and God's going to save me." And
splat.
With girls from the Honeybees, right?
The Honeybees, yeah.
Quartet.
Yep. And then Hal Anderson put his plane on display because he was such a great man. For years, they just took it down not too long ago. And his plane was on display.
People worship him, and it's
literally
so sick.
Disgusting.
Just think for themselves. I think people need to start thinking for themselves and not following like a robot. And that's every aspect.
Ask questions.
Is there anything else you want to say? What can you tell the parents? I know I'm dragging this thing on and I'll probably edit a lot out, but
that's okay.
What could you tell the parents that are contemplating sending their child to one of these lockdown facilities?
Do your research, ask questions. Don't do it. Throw them out on the side of the road. You'll have a better chance.
And what do you suggest for survivors that are trying to cope with the aftermath of these programs?
Find us on Facebook. Find a survivor group. You're going to need us. You're going to need good PTSD treatment, and you're not crazy. You're not alone. We believe you. Come find us. We're waiting.
And we have survivors of institutional abuse with Jody Hobbs. There's a lot of places we can connect you with, and I will leave that website at the end of the show. Helpforteens.org, James Swift. If you need to get a hold of M, and we'll be there for you.
Anytime.
Find you on Facebook and Adams. Thank you so much for being on the show, M.
You're welcome, sweetie. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, M, for being brave and telling your story. If you are a parent contemplating sending your child to a lockdown reform school, wilderness camp, boot camp for kids, rehabilitation program, conversion therapy, I want you to think twice about it. If you have a 1% chance that this could happen to your child, why would you take that risk? My name is Janine Miller, and you are watching Pieces of Victory. As I'm getting closer to menopause.
Join me. It's actually not so bad, really.
Oh my God. What's that?
Menopause ain't so bad, really.
Compared to the troubled teen industry.
Yeah. At least I know I'm not going to have to strip home on my period anymore. So that's a bonus.
I'm putting that in the blooper.
Totally fine. Maybe
I know you're not supposed to hate anyone, But I hate what he done to me.
When Nancy Womack was 16, she lived at an orphanage in Dalton, Georgia. Nancy fell in love, but when the orphanage director learned Nancy was pregnant, he made a decision that would haunt her for the next 40 years.
He said, this is what's going to happen. You're not shaming the children's home, and we're going to take care of this.
At 3 months pregnant, the director sent Nancy away to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and the Bethesda Home for Girls.
And it was a long dirt road from the main road down to Bethesda. At the time, I thought it was the longest dirt road in the world. And then it opens up to this long white building. It was like a nightmare. I was born in Dalton, Georgia. My grandparents raised me up until I was about 9 or 10. They had got sick, and the state had told her either she'd do something with us or the state would take us. They put us in the Dalton Rescue Mission. I had never heard of Bethesda until they sent my sister there. Just woke up one day and she's gone. And the director of the home had told me that that's what she wanted to do, that she would get more spirituality at this home in Bethesda. When I got pregnant, the house parent had found out I was, and he said, pack an overnight bag, you're going to see your sister. Halfway there, he told me what they were going to be doing. They were taking me and leaving me there. The baby would be taken from me. We were on the interstate. I was going to jump out because I wanted this baby. I wanted her. They took her from me.
The Bethesda Home for Girls advertised itself as a place where troubled kids would learn discipline through the Word of God. According to Nancy and other women who lived there when they were young, days at Bethesda started early and consisted of praying, cleaning, and listening to the preaching of national evangelist and founder of the home, Lester Roloff.
The state, let her run her own institution, but let the church run it.
They had us listening to audio tapes of Lester Roloff day in, day out. When you wasn't praying or listening to the preacher, you were cleaning. I seen one girl refuse. They drug her to the shower room, beat the holy daylights out of her. You just learn after a while, after being abused and slapped and hit and punched, I guess survival mode kicks in.
That's the result of your television program. Say what you please. You can raise all the cane you want to raise.
Just let me get through this day.
2 weeks before she was due to give birth, Nancy was put on the first airplane she'd ever been on and flew to Tennessee to deliver her baby.
I remember them putting the IV in me, and I remember I was falling asleep, and I'd pull it out, and they'd put it back in, and they'd just give me a shot and put me out. I don't remember having her. I don't remember them wheeling me into the delivery room. I don't remember nothing. Well, the next morning, the doctor, he come in, and I said, I want to see my little girl. And he said, how'd you know you had a little girl? You weren't supposed to know what you had. I never will forget that. I don't have the words to tell you what it feels like to have your baby stolen from you. To know that you want her, and for them to take it because they want the money off of it. There's no words for that. And there's always that hole.
In Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where Brother Roloff runs a home for unwed mothers, the district attorney has been looking into charges he has been selling the girls' babies for hundreds of dollars.
In 1974, 5 years before Nancy gave birth, homes run by the Lester Roloff Ministries in both Mississippi and Texas were coming under scrutiny by local authorities.
Brother Roloff denied the charges. He says he doesn't profit from the babies. He merely tries to place them in good Christian homes.
In fact, selling babies wasn't illegal in Mississippi and wouldn't be until 2009. Amid allegations of abuse, Roloff fought most of his legal battles in Texas over his refusal to follow state licensing requirements. During this time, he produced a documentary, Freedom's Last Call, to argue against the government's right to regulate religious homes.
It's an insult to God's work and God's people that support these homes to accuse us of doing irreparable damage to children when we make no charge. And have done nothing but love them and lift them and teach them to sing the praises of God. Girls, do you love Jesus?
Oh, yes, we love Jesus.
Roloff closed his facilities in Texas rather than submit to the state. But in Mississippi, where there were no regulations on religious homes, Bethesda stayed open.
The law of the Lord, that's what we go by. Statutes, man-made, unscriptural, they don't mean anything to me.
Roloff died in a plane crash in 1982, but Bethesda remained operational through the mid-'80s when a girl ran away from the facility. Youth court judge referee Dan Wise investigated and declared Bethesda an illegal jail. In 1986, the state took custody of the 117 girls who lived there. The home closed permanently a year later.
We actually had to take over the home. The pastor abandoned the property. However, there were all kind of records at the court, and they would bring the girls into Hattiesburg. They would be pregnant, and then they would move the girls out to another state to stay in a foster home and do the adoption in another jurisdiction. So there was no way to track them down. There were at least 100 adoptions in our county that I'm aware of. There's no way to know how many.
If you could just say and spell your name.
Okay, my name is Melanie Spencer.
Can you just tell us a bit about yourself? Where did you grow up?
Okay. So I grew up mostly in Africa, in South Africa. My dad was a missionary. My parents have always told me that I was adopted. They said it was through a Christian adoption agency and that it had been important for my biological mother that I go into a good Christian home. I think a lot of times growing up, I didn't feel rooted or connected.
Melanie Spencer had always been curious about her biological family, but when she got older and Tennessee passed a law opening adoption cases like hers, she was nervous.
There were some cases that were being opened where maybe the mom didn't tell the family that there had been another child. The more I thought about, do I really want to disrupt her family or, what she's done with her life moving forward? Maybe I shouldn't dig into this anymore. I decided to walk away.
In the years after the birth, Nancy tried to find her daughter. One lawyer told her she wasn't fit to be a mother. She also tried contacting child services.
When I told them what happened, they didn't believe me. So I quit telling my story after that. Through the years, I remember thinking, well, she should be taking her first step now, or her first day of school should have started. And every year on her birthday, I know it didn't make any sense, but I always baked her a cake. She would be 12 today, she would be 13 today, she would be 14 today. She was always there.
So I had my son in 2014, and then I had my daughter in February of 2018. I really started thinking about what will I tell them about where they're from when they're older and they start asking questions. And so I decided to do Ancestry. The most interesting part was that it came up with a DNA match. I sort of looked at it and I was like, whoa, what do I do with this? I think I just decided to go for it. My name is Melanie Spencer, and I was born in June of 1979. I was adopted as a baby from East Ridge, Tennessee, and I know nothing about my family. My adoption was closed, but I think my mother's birth name was Nancy.
Nancy's sister received Melanie's message.
And on January 31st, she said, yes, I know the story. And she said, yes, I know the story. We need to talk.
I think she said she was born in East Ridge on June the 14th, and I knew who she was.
So I connected with Nancy through Facebook. I remembered looking at her picture and was like, wow, there she is.
Hello, Melanie.
Hi.
How are you? It's good to finally find you. I know this is scary. I have waited 39 years for this.
I've wondered about you for a long time. It's a little overwhelming.
There's not a day goes by that I'd have not thought of you. I want you to know that you are loved so much. I'll answer any question you have. Sometimes I wake up and I think, oh God, I'm just dreaming. Because I used to dream about meeting her. So yeah, this is like a dream to me. Oh God, I'm so nervous. I'm happy that she will know that she was loved. I'm happy that I finally found her, or she's found me. That's her.
Hey, sis.
How are you? Hi.
Nora. God, I'm so glad you're here.
The drive down, I was kind of anxious, and then I got out of the car, and there she was, 42 years of questions. It almost feels like there wasn't any missing time. It feels like coming home.
She wanted to know about her siblings. She had always wanted brothers and sisters, and she has a house full now. And she's just what I thought she would be. She's beautiful, she's smart. She just didn't realize how crazy I was until I guess she walked into the house.
Stop it. So I was very aware of Elvis being the number one man.
He's my happy place.
Since connecting with Melanie, Nancy has shared her story with other women who lost their children at Bethesda. She hopes that finding Melanie inspires them to keep looking for their own children.
7 pounds, 7 ounces.
When I was in labor, you felt bigger than that.
First birthday, living in Indonesia.
These girls on the Bethesda groups, they talk about forgiveness and healing. Then they say, let it go. I can't let it go. Yes, she's in my life, and yes, I get to spend a week with her. But so many things I've missed, I can't let that go. But maybe after this, it won't be so bad. They won't take no more from me.
The Bethesda Home for Girls closed in 1987. But Roloff's teachings have continued to inspire homes for troubled teens.
And of course, when we closed them, the people that operated the Gettysburg home moved to the state of Missouri, which shamefully had almost no regulations on these kind of homes. And so that's still going on in Missouri to this day.
The homes are no longer accused of selling babies, but allegations of abuse persist.
They're all over the place, unfortunately. And with internet, they've actually gone international, but it's the same people, the same deal. Brother Roloff's photo is still hanging at the front door.